Hi, YouTube friends. Welcome to another episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Today we're going to be talking about jazz music. How come one of the most popular styles in American history lost its popularity through the years? Okay, so we're going to talk about three good things about jazz, three bad things about jazz, and then three things that could get ugly during a jazz performance. Okay, so the first three good things are when jazz started, jazz was very popular. At some point in the 30s, it was the most popular style with the big bands. So at that point, jazz songs were using a familiar structure, AABA structure, 32 bar generally, or a blues, 12 bar blues structure. Those structures were very popular. And there were jazz songs were also utilizing popular melodies. So that's the second good thing about jazz. And the third good thing about jazz that I want to mention, jazz is a very rhythmically rich. You can play jazz songs in a ballad form. You can do swing. You can do double time. You can play jazz in a samba style, bossa nova, funk. So you could play songs in different styles. And also when you are soloing, there's a lot of freedom, and there's this thing called the swing factor that comes into play. So those are the three good things that I want to emphasize about jazz: the familiar harmonic structure, song structure, the familiar melodies, and their richness in rhythm, in rhythmic variety. Okay, now let's go to three bad things about jazz. The first thing I want to mention on that, when jazz was popular in the 30s, during the big band era, people were dancing to jazz, and they were having fun, and moving, and getting some exercise and partying. So when bebop came along in the 40s, that sort of ended the whole jazz party. The whole dance party, I should say, because the bebop had faster tempos, and bebop was created. I even have a quote here that says, "Bebop was often considered musicians' music, as it was designed to showcase technical skill and creative expression rather than cater to a dancing audience." So bebop was created, like I said, the tempos were faster, and it was created to showcase technical skills, in their instrument. Guitar wasn't really a big part of bebop. It was mainly Charlie Parker with the saxophone and Dizzy Gillespie with his trumpet. Those were two main players of bebop. So that sort of ended the whole people having fun with their partner in the dance floor, And then the second thing I want to emphasize that it could be bad is that the jazz developed this harmonic complexity. Songs were no longer, following the chord changes. There were at this point substitute changes. The soloists were soloing in very harmonic way, outlining the chords, and they were no longer embellishing the melody like the generation before. Soloists would play the melody and then embellish it during the solo. In this case, soloists are going on an excursion in the bebop era, so that the audience is not as big. The audience is getting a little smaller that are interested in this kind of stuff. Remember, people are now sitting down listening to jazz. They're no longer dancing and having fun. Okay, and the third thing that is bad that I wanna mention is the solos became longer, extended solos. So at some point, the audiences were getting lost in terms of, when you have different people in the group soloing and the solos are extended, there's only so much the people can hold on to. The melodies played at the beginning, then solos by the sax, solos by the trumpet, solo by the piano, and at some point it's like it's been 15 minutes in some cases, and the band is still soloing. I've seen some concerts in which the solos last a long time, songs. In any case, so those are the three bad things. The bebop had faster tempo, so dancers were no longer, having fun. The harmonic complexity of bebop with chord substitutions, harmonic soloing, and also the extended solos. Different band members soloing, in ways that were really, taking several choruses. Okay, now the three ugly things that can happen in jazz. The first thing I want to mention are real book gigs. These are gigs in which jazz musicians get together without rehearsing, and they're just playing standards from the real book. And this is very limiting because you gotta rely on standards. There's nothing that the band is really doing together, like playing unison lines or elaborate endings or beginnings. Everything has to be sort of standardized for these real book gigs. And really, as an audience member, do you really want to go see a performance in which the band never rehearsed? They're just getting together, in some cases for the first time, or weekly gig, monthly gig, something like that. Something to think about for jazz musicians. There's not a lot of rehearsing going on in certain, in certain type of gigs. Okay, the second thing I want to mention is when jazz sort of became more avant-garde, and that so the harmonic concepts were even more radical. People kind of going away from really traditional harmony, merging more into 20th century music, and there's it was more experimental, and 20th century music was not that popular, 20th century classical music. So avant-garde jazz, at this point, we're going from the big band era, large audience, to bebop, audience are getting smaller, there's several other genres, but then when we get to avant-garde, jazz is really, really, boy, it's not very popular at all. These are concerts that are, somebody gets up and he sort of starts improvising, and other people kind of join, and then there was almost like you make it up as you go along. There's some great avant-garde jazz. John Coltrane became avant-garde, but even with him, the more he got into the avant-garde and he evolved in his musicianship, his audience, got smaller. A lot of people prefer the Coltrane from "I Love Supreme" and those albums, Blue Train, as opposed to the later, more avant-garde, albums he made. Okay, and the last thing I want to mention is jazz, bass solos. Bass solos in jazz. What is going on when the bassist is solo? And well, what happens is a lot of the time is when the bassist takes a solo, because of the low frequency, a lot of the other instruments lay back. So the drummer plays very little. The comping is very sparse by the guitarist or pianist, and then the bass player is kind of left alone up there for the public to kind of look at and listen to. So in that case, it's very difficult, because if you think about this, what I'm going to say, the bass player has to play melodically, to be a good solo, and then at the same time the drums are almost non-existent, so he has to kind of propel the song with rhythmic intensity, and also the harmony is not very present, so you got to play a melodic solo that outlines the chord changes and has a good pulse propelling the song. So because a lot of the other players are laying back so much, and I've seen cases in which the bass player is playing arpeggios, or they're playing pentatonic licks and stuff like that, and it's hard to know, are they playing in the changes, or are they not really following the song? It's very difficult, because also the low notes define the harmony. So if somebody's soloing on the low register and the other chords are playing underneath them, it's not as clear. There's some confusion going on. So there you have it. Those are the things, the three ugly things that I said. Jazz gigs when bands don't rehearse. Real book gigs when bands don't rehearse. The avant-garde trend that I think a lot of jazz musicians went into, but it is really diminished the number of the audience members that enjoy that. And also the bass solos. There's always room to improve in any of the categories that I mentioned. I love jazz music, and I'm a big fan of John Coltrane, Sonny Rollins, and people like Pat Metheny, John Scofield, Peter Sprague. But there's also other parts of jazz that are more dissonant, and they're really really hard for the public to kind of understand what's going on. Okay, there you have it. Thanks a lot for listening. Give back and be blessed. See you in the next video. Bye bye.